Cellini, the master goldsmith, positioned right on the center of the Rialto Bridge. Or correction, the Ponte Vecchio. Rialto's in Venice. We're at Palazzo Vecchio. It's from the exit of the Uffizi. The loggia. Notice the fine work on these columns. You can only imagine how brilliant this must have looked when it was freshly painted. I wonder if they had carpets on the floor. And there again you see the coat of arms, the 6 pills for the Medici, the medicine family. Impress your neighbors. Kind of original lighting fixture. That bulb may be holding some kind of fuel for a flame. Infrastructure, at least here, of these cycles, and as well as apparently that it looks like a Volkswagen type thing. Smart car is also an electric car. Arch at Palazzo Pizzali della Repubblica, the Plaza, Republican Plaza. Legs are killing me. Final view of Brunelleschi's dome that I climbed up this morning. Bargello, which used to be a prison, but looks very much like, as the guidebook says, Palazzo Vecchio. Down here just to give us a sense of where I'm at. The only place you can video is in this courtyard. Once we get in the museum itself, I'm not allowed to. This is the house of sculpture, for lack of a better term, and as the guidebook points out, Florentine Renaissance began with sculpture, and this is the repository for the best of it. Again, it's just entrancing to see the architecture, even though my brain's cloaked in ignorance of what I'm looking at. Myself is instructed by Rick Steves. I pan up this wall just to notice the size and the strength of this building. Fortifications at the top, crenellation. Rick Steves' guidebook that sculpture is the most robust of the arts, and complicated, of course, by the sheer mechanics of choosing the correct stone and knowing how to carve it in stone with chisel and hammer. Probably most poignantly illustrated by Michelangelo's disdain and almost gross disgust with his stone that he used for his last Pieta. It was so hard to sculpt because it was hard and coarse-grained, even creating sparks when he hit it wrong. Be strong enough to pound grooves into the hard stone of Michelangelo's Pieta, the last one, and at the same time be sensitive enough at touch to put in the delicate lines that are often required. Let's go look at some of this. To look at this, which may not be the highest of quality, I don't know. Vincenzo Dante, presumably the writer Dante, ensconced in the garb of a Roman centurion, I suppose. Apparently dedicated or created, promoted by Cosimo Medici. But it almost gives me the feeling that it should be cast somehow, that would be the easier way. Pounding it out of stone doesn't seem realistic. Of course, the panel on the left of those two red ones looks like the baptistry. Who knows what all this is and what it implies? Certainly someone very knowledgeable could see all kinds of nuances in it that I can't even begin to detect, but no doubt this would be an impressive artifact on the front of the trophy homes in Jackson. But its appearance of such great idealized beauty would suggest it is. Don't really know. I don't think so. It's Giovanni Battista, a name I recognize. Perhaps some kind of lintel or frieze. But again, talking about the sensitivity of touch. Imagine that bouquet of flowers in her shawl there. Or that belt that goes across her chest, or the work in her skirt, all done with a chisel and stone. And look at this, in the legwork, the detail there. A couple of weeks in Florence is that I can wander through these museums, looking at things, just searching for my own questions. Of fountains, water perhaps coming from the lion's mouth. No imagination required here. Certainly, this would reflect the Florentines' rabid variance from the medieval purity or Puritanism. I don't know what those are. They look very old. Keys to the city, perhaps, that one in the middle. Can't see for sure what this is. Just looks funky. Are embedded in the wall, which suggests they're original. Obviously installed after the building was made. Might not be artifacts from Rome, copped, if you will, as souvenirs for the intelligentsia of Florence. I can't tell. Prudence, and it's from 1556, which would be the High Renaissance. Maybe even Venice Renaissance. alludes to Neptune, but notice the incredible power of that body. I mean, even Schwarzenegger would shrink from this contest. Look at this right hand here. Let's focus in on that. Look at the blood vessels in the wrist. How they migrate up into the powerful arm. Used the tail of that fish to provide internal support to the sculptural structure. Again, the powerful muscles. Look at the butt muscle. And what is the expression on the face? Contemplation? Perusal of a god? I don't know. Where on this column, notice the detail on the top of that hook that holds the double hook. The head of a cat, perhaps. Sculpture, 1850s. The fisher boy, obviously, clutching his fists in his hand. Gone into this gun, if you will. Such an obvious killing machine. Consumed so much artistic commitment. Perhaps it was more decoration than armor, but notice on top the 6 pills of the Medici icon. One of the reasons it would have this art is because the Medicis, first of all, were incredibly wealthy, were the patrons of this Renaissance art, and they could do it. Mo's name on it. He's not about to have anything created by him without having his name on it, I'm sure. And this, ironically, is St. Paul. So this cannon is a St. Paul cannon built for the fort at Pisa. This smaller cannon, designed for a ship galley by Cosimo II. And on the breech end, I suppose this is the breech end, are 4 stars, 2 of which we can see there that represent the Medicean. Sounds halfway between Medici and something else. Supposed planets discovered by Galileo. Again, the 6 pills of the powerful Medici family. Commissioned in 1379 or 59 for the Church San Paolo Gattolini, whatever that is, wherever it is. But even here I can notice a difference between this pre-Renaissance sculpture and what you would expect in the Renaissance. The flatness, for example, of the man on the left. His whole body just seems to be contained within a relatively narrow piece of stone. And there, this man on the right, his shoulder is almost scrunched in, his arms pulled into his side to accommodate the stone rather than the reverse. Remember that medieval characters were designed to symbolically give a message to those who were illiterate. So the book and whatever the man has in his right hand here to the left, maybe the remains of a sword, would tell us that he's a certain person evidencing certain church ethics. Obviously the Virgin and Child in the center. And again, here, whatever these tools are. Now, the fact that both these men have books indicate they're probably the original 4 apostles who wrote the books of the Bible. The symbology in the cat or the other smaller wolf-like animal underneath these lions. This one appears dead under the lion, but I don't know. Robbia, if you recall, he made the El Cantore. Or they look like family crests, some embedded in the face of the wall and some attached to it. May have been just one more vehicle for the wealthy families of Florence to evidence their presence and power. One would think that the location, the size, the fact that it's embedded versus applied would indicate, again, something of their relative power. The book gives a suggestion on how to view sculpture, to look at each sculpture first as something ensconced within a block of stone, and that somehow gives us a sense of its center. If it gives us a sense of its center, what does that mean? And what should it mean to us? Tell us about this dynamic figure. These guidelines will go upstairs to the first room and pursue an order Donatello, Verroce, and be a pretty little scene. Own right. We can't see this goddamn sculpture, which is what we came here for, until the 29th of November. Inspirating to be in the museum where you can't take photos, and there are lots of people taking photos. These were birds commissioned for one of the villas of the Medici.